Welcome to week 13, day 59 of the spring 2025 Web Technologies course. I'm Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. So this week will be our last book chapters that we'll cover in this course, and also the last written test as well. Next week, we will be getting familiar with Node.js and React.js. And I think also I think I already mentioned this once. I do want to do an assignment on the Git version control. And the reason for that is, and I'm going to do that next week. We won't do that this week, but just real quick, reason I want to do an assignment on that is, in the real world, as students in your classroom, you have your own repository and you're always working within that. But in the real world, when you're on a project, you've got a team of developers that are working off that same repository. So there's times that you're going to be sharing code, and you need to be able to create branches and merge your code back into the main branch. So I'm gonna come up with at least a simple assignment for that, so you can practice, creating a new branch and then merging back into the main. For those who have not done that before. And then, I think in the second year we'll kind of do a little more complex stuff as far as that's concerned, just so you can understand how that works. It's kind of a pain. It's not fun. It's not a fun thing to do, but it's really part of the process when you're working on a team and you're using, source control type things such as Git. So, today we'll go ahead and go over Chapter 15, Lecture and Demonstration, how to work with arrays, sets, and maps. And then I'll go ahead and I'll probably walk through the study guide a little bit for the written test. And then we'll go ahead and also go through the Chapter 15 lab assignment. Okay, let's get the lecture started here. So today we'll explore three fundamental data structures in JavaScript: arrays, sets, and maps. These are vital tools for organizing, manipulating data, and understanding their distinct characteristics. And understanding their distinct characteristics is crucial for efficient programming. Now, we've already done a little bit with arrays already, and some students also have done other collection type things like sets and maps as well. But I know we've all done a little bit of array stuff, but going to kind of still cover some concepts of that as well. So arrays are ordered collections. This means elements are stored and accessed based on their position or index. Index begins at 0, and the first element is at index 0, and the second element is at index 1, and so on. The length property tells you how many elements are in the array. So there's different ways for adding and removing items from an array. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those here. So let's see on the left-hand side here. Let me see where I'm at here. Okay, so first I want to point out what I'm doing here is just look at the code over here, or the screen, I should say. So here I've just got a text field, and I'm going to put an array of values in here. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. And actually, I want to do something else as well. I want to put in some extra spaces just to show you how this is kind of working. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in debug mode just so you can see this. So I'm going to go ahead and put a breakpoint there. We're just going to kind of ignore this screen for the time being. So let me put a breakpoint there. And now, so I have mine set up, and I know I kind of went through this last week as far as the debugger goes. So I'm just going to come in here and press F5, and that's going to fire open a debug window. And I think I'll just go ahead and drop that up in here. It's not going to let me do that, is it? No, it's not going to let me do that. But okay, so here, let me see what I can do here. I think I can change. I'll just do this instead. Okay. I was hoping it would just drop in with those others, but since it's for some reason the debug window works differently. So, okay, I got a breakpoint right here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put in some values. So I got a 1. I'm going to put in some spaces, a 3, space 7, space 8, 9, whatever. Actually, we'll put in commas. And so I'm going to go ahead and process this array. And what this is going to do when I process this array, it's going to split this array based on the commas in here. Okay, it's going to split those based on the commas, and it's going to map each one. Okay, this is a specific function that's available for arrays. So this will actually map this. So it'll split this, and it'll map this string, because these are string values, and it'll map this to an array. Okay. I'm going to hit process array here, and it should stop at our debugger window. Okay. So it stopped right here. And so if you want to, we can look at this. Here's our input. So I'm going to hover over this, and you can see it popped up top there. You can see with all the spaces in there, right? But on here, what we're actually doing down here on line 110, we're doing a trim. Okay, so we're trimming any spaces, and that would be, and when you do a trim, it's going to do both leading and trailing spaces. So in this case, it went ahead and split this based on commas in here, and then, this could be anything. If I wanted to, if I separate it in the text field, if I separate it by semicolons, I would change, semicolon, I put a semicolon in there, right? If I separated by colon, I put a colon in there. But for my case, I'm separating it by commas, right? And so this array, as you can see, it created an array, and all of the leading and trailing spaces are gone since I did a trim on this. So this is just a normal array, starting at subscript 0, at the index 0 is 1, all the way through 4, which is the 9, right? Okay. So I'm going to continue on from that. Okay, so next I want to go ahead and we want to do, we're going to do some of these different functions that are available. So we're going to go ahead and do the push, and basically we're going to push a value. So down here, I'm actually printing out the results of the array. This is my original array, and this is after it's been manipulated. Down here, it's going to print. So I'm going to do a push here, and the value I'm going to push, I'm going to put in 11, and I'm going to hit OK here, and push is going to add the value to the end. Okay, it's going to add the value to the end. Now pop is going to remove an item. So I'm going to click, actually I'll go ahead and I'm just going to click process array again here. And I'm going to get rid of my, okay, I'm going to process the array again, and then I'm going to just go ahead and hit pop here. And pop's going to remove the last one, which was a 9 there. If I do another one, it'll remove 8. It's always going to be the last one. It's going to pop, it pops it off the array. Okay. Now I'm going to do unshift. Let's watch, see what unshift does. So you enter your value to unshift. So I'm going to say 0, 1. I'm going to do 1. Hit OK. And as you can see, it's going to add another value 1. So it's going to add it at the beginning. Okay, it's going to add it at the beginning. So maybe a better way to take a look at that is, let me do that like this. So that's a 2, and I'm going to do the unshift. I'm going to put a 1, hit OK, and it's going to add a 1 at the beginning. So unshift adds at the beginning. Push adds to the end. Pops it off the end. Unshift adds it to the beginning. Okay, and so let's see what shift does. Shift is going to just, here, let's do that again. It's going to pop. It's the opposite of what pop does, but it pulls it off the beginning. So if I go ahead and do that again, it'll grab the next one. So it's always the first one in the list, right? Then we have what's called splice, okay? And splice, what we do here is we're going to start at index 1. And you know, you can do, that's what I'm choosing. So I'm choosing index 1 and delete count. So I'm going to delete, let's say I want to delete 3. And then enter the new item. I'm going to skip that. So I'm just splicing, starting at 1 for 3, and I'm going to hit OK here, and let's see what it did. Okay. It got rid of 3, 7, and 8. It got rid of 3, 7, and 8. So it started at the first index 1, and it basically is going to return everything besides what is there, which is the 2 and the 9. And that's splice. And let's go ahead and run that again with a or replacement. So let's start at 1. Let's start at 1. And let's do that for 4 this time. So that should replace. So the only thing should be left right now would be 2. But we're going to do a new item, and we're going to put in 11. I'm going to hit OK here. And as you can see, now we're at 2 and 11. All right. Now let's do index of. You know, I know some of these you've already done, so some of it's a review. Some of it might not be a review for everyone. So index of. So let's go ahead and get the index of one of the items. Enter item defined. So we're going to enter in the item defined. And so we're going to put a 7 in here. And that tells you that the index of 7 is at index 2. Right? 0, 1, 2. Includes. This is doing, just saying, does this array include this? So this is returning index of is going to return the index, the specific spot in the array, right? Whereas includes is just going to return true or false. So let me put in a number that's not there, 11, and it's going to return false. Okay. And then if I do includes on the number 9, it is going to return true. So that's includes. So now let's go ahead and do, let me see if there's anything. So as far as doing these, you know, real simple. Over here on the left-hand side in the code, you know, you got you just do array.push. And you're passing in your input value, and that's it, right? It's hard to maybe see some of this. So array.push, array.pop, that's all you're doing there. Unshift, you know, they're just single function calls. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you're passing in a value, sometimes you're not. So, and then we've seen the splice. We did splice, index of. And we did the includes here. And now we're going to go ahead and do a filter. Okay. We're going to do a filter. And in this case, we're doing a filter. and in your code is your whatever your requirements is, whatever your needs are. So in this case, if the length of the item is greater than 2, right? If the length of the item is greater than 2, we're going to be filtering on that. So I'm going to have to change this. So I'm going to have a 1. I'm just going to put a 1 here, and then I'm going to put a 4, and then I'm going to put a couple, put one of those, and then I'll do, so that one has a length of 3, right? The first one had a length of 1. The 33 is a length of 2. This one's a length of 3. I'll do another length of 3, and then we'll do a bigger number there. So I'm going to process this array. It's just basically when I process this array, I'm just, this is for demonstration purposes, basically taking it from a string format and creating an array out of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a filter. And this filter is going to check to see if the item.length is greater than 2. And let me click on filter here. And as you can see, it returned the ones that are where the length is greater than 2. And that's how a filter works. Okay. So do that. Now, as far as sort will sort the item, but it's going to sort it basically from an alphabetical type situation. So here, let me actually put these in different orders. So here you would kind of, you think this would return 1433. If I put in, let's process that one, and then let's sort it. And as you can see, yes, that did work correctly. It sorted it based on basically just the first number, right? The first 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. But, 777 is greater than 99. So if we want to do something like that, we have to add something. We have to create kind of a different kind of a function for that. And let me see if I think I have this over here just to make things easier. So for here, what we can do is we can we'll create a function. And then here we've got a function where we're basically we're doing a sort function here. We're creating a function and we're taking A minus B. And by doing that, it will go through the list. It's going to take the first one. It's going to do kind of a comparison of each one. Okay. So down here, though, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set our array. Let's just comment this part out. And we're going to take our array and we are going to set that equal to our right here. And we're going to pass in our array. Okay, so we got sort numbers array. So I think that should do the trick here. Let me save this. So let me push process array again so we start from scratch. So now this time, I'm hoping this is going to work. So we should be able to, what's going to happen here, it's basically going to sort it from high to low numerically. Let's go ahead and click the sort here. And it did not do that. Let me see what I did wrong here. Sort number strings, array equals array. Sort numbers. And maybe because it's in debug mode here, it's causing me an issue. Okay, process, and I hit sort now. There we go. Sometimes the debug stuff causes some side effects. So in this case, you got a 1, a 3, a 4, 88, and 77. Before we added that function, since the 7 comes before 8, it would have, even though this is the 3 digits, it would be here, and the 88 would have been the last one. But since we are now sorting it we're basically taking A minus B, this will go ahead and sort each one of those, okay, based on the values. Next one here. So let's see what I got here. Delete. So what I'm doing here, so this deletes, if you look over here on the right hand side, line 173, this will delete the contents, okay, at this position. It's not going to delete, kind of would delete the whole array. It doesn't delete the whole array. It's just going to delete the contents at a certain position. So if I go ahead and hit delete here, it should delete the 1. Process this first and then click delete. And it's actually going to add a null at the beginning. It's going to add a null at the beginning. And the rest of the array stays like it is. All right. So let's see. We went through push, pop. Push will add it to the end. Pop is going to remove it from the end. Unshift is going to add it at the beginning, right? And shift's going to remove it from the beginning. Splice allows for adding or removing elements at any position. If you recall, we started at I think I started at position 1 for 3 positions, and then you can also optionally replace a value at all in one within kind of one function altogether, right? Just by using multiple indices. We looked at, didn't look at last index of, but that's okay. We looked at index of and includes. Just want to kind of go over loops a little bit. So when to use, like the different kinds of loops. So the for loop, when to use when you need precise control over the iteration. When you need to access array elements by their index. When you need to iterate in a specific order or with a specific step. When you need to modify the array during the iteration. And when you need to break out of a loop early. So, here's just a basic example of doing that. Just a basic array looping through the array, right? Now, the for of loop, when to use it, when you need to iterate over the values of an array without needing the index, not necessarily needing the index, when you want a simpler and more readable syntax, when you don't need to modify the array during iteration. There's ways around it, but this is really, you really shouldn't, when you do a for of loop, when you do these for of loops, you really shouldn't be trying to modify the array during the iteration. The for each method, when to use that, when you need to execute a function for each element in an array, when you don't need to break out of the root loop early, and when you want a concise way to iterate over an array. The for in loop is generally, just keep this in mind, generally not recommended for arrays. It iterates over the enumerable property names of an object, which for arrays are the indices. But try to avoid using the for in loop when you're for arrays. So, in summary, the for loop for precise control, the for of loop for simple iterations over array values, the for each method for concise iteration and executing a function on each element, and the for in loop for iterating over usually for object properties. Try to avoid it for array iterations. Okay. Let's see what else. I'm going to go over here. So this transformation, this was basically the map that we were talking about at the very beginning of our JavaScript here. So when we're talking about like kind of these different data structures between arrays, maps, and sets, when we say map, we're not talking about this map. This is a specific function that's available for arrays, and basically to use it to take this string and create an array out of the string. It's very helpful for splitting up your string, splitting up the string based on whatever. And in this case, our separator is a comma, and being able to map that, and so you can map that to an array. Sorting, we looked at sorting, where by default it's going to basically do it alphabetically. But if we go ahead and we can add a separate function to sort it based on the numeric value. And we did high to low. You switch those things down. You switch. We had A minus B. You switch that. And you can do it the opposite way as well. Slice. We took a look at the slice. We don't look at all of these, but so I did want to go over a few other things real quick here. So destructuring, and as time goes on, some of the stuff may be a little confusing for you, but as time goes on, you'll understand it better. So destructuring basically unpacks object properties into variables. So here, if we go down here, here's an object. You created this object called person. And we're going to be actually talking about objects more tomorrow. But here's an object named person, giving it a first name, last name, and age. And you can use what's called destructuring, because if you just want to create some variables, okay? Some variables, and you can give it like first name, comma, last name, equals person. And so then in your code, you can just say first name. You can just say first name and it will return John. Or in your code, you can say last name and return Doe. So here's an example. We'll just go ahead and try it yourself. So we created the object. We did our destructuring, which we said let last name and first name equal person. And then down here, we did entered HTML. We just did basically one of our variables, our first name variable and our last name variable. And so our first name equals John and our last name equals Doe. Just kind of a simple way to access some of the properties that you have defined within like an object. Okay. Let's see what else I want to go over here. Think a multi-dimensional array. Just take a quick look at a multi-dimensional array. So for the most part, we've always, we've had some assignments where we've done arrays already. But here's kind of basically this is a 2D array, right? A two-dimensional array. So basically, you've got you're including. We were always used to doing like one-dimensional array would just be like a 1, 2, and 3, and that'd be it, right? Well, this one's an array of arrays, right? So this is a two-dimensional array, and then so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you go ahead and run, if you get the index of 0, that's going to actually return this whole piece there, which is the output is 1, 2, 3. If you do it this way, if you want to get this number 6 here, right? You're going to say, give me the index of 1. This is the index of 0. Give me the index of 1, which is going to be this array. And then give me the second item, not the second item, the second index in that array. So this is going to be 0, this is going to be 1, and this is going to be 2. So it's going to return the 6. Okay. We won't go through this much, but here's just, kind of another, same thing, another example. So the very first one, this is getting number 1, which is this group in this multi-dimensional array. This is at index 0. This is at index 1. So you're returning this whole DEF, and that's what you can see down here in the output. And then you're doing the second one, the second array and then you're getting the first index, the first value, and not the first one, but the first index, or I should say the index at 1, which 0 is G, H is 1. So that's how that works. Okay. Don't have to get too more involved in that, and obviously you can have much more complex multi-dimensional arrays. Just kind of want to do a quick run through on that. Let's see, what else do I want to really cover in here? So something you'll be seeing more of, especially for the we'll be doing this some when we start doing the Node and React stuff. Basically, a JSON object, which is JavaScript object notation, and the purpose of JSON is a text-based format for representing structured data, commonly used for data exchange between web applications and servers. So a JSON.stringify converts a JavaScript array into a JSON string, and JSON.parse converts a JSON string back into a JavaScript array. Okay, and over here on the right-hand side in our code, we did that a few different places down here. Let me see where we got that. So where we did our filter here, we did that here. We did a JSON. We did a stringify on our filter in our filtered, all right, our filtered result. So that was a stringify, and then parse is. I'm not sure we did parse there, but just for now, just know that what's the difference between stringify and parse. Stringify is from converting a JavaScript array into a JSON string, and parse converts a JSON string back into a JavaScript array. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at sets here. Sets are collections of unique values. Duplicates are automatically removed. We're going to take a look at that. Sets are not indexed. Elements are accessed based on their value. So on array, we know that index 0 is going to be the first one, etc. But sets don't work like that. They're not indexed. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put in some values the same way here. 1, 3. I'm going to put in a couple duplicates. I'm going to put in a 3 twice. I'm going to put a 5, 7. I'm going to put another 7. And then put an 8. And I'm going to process this. And as you can see, since I process this as a set, it's not going to put in duplicate values. It's not going to put in duplicate values. For an array will. For an array, it'll put in duplicate values, right? Duplicate values are allowed. For sets, duplicate values are not allowed. So you want to use a set when there may be a duplicate value that it's important and you want to hold on to it, right? And now we can go ahead and click add. Enter the value to add. Choose number 9. hit OK. Just going to add it to the end, right? And you just keep on doing that, obviously. Just going to add it to the end. Now, if I try to do an add on a duplicate, I try to do it again, it's not going to put it there, right? It's not going to allow you to add a duplicate. Delete, you don't delete based on index, you delete based on value. So in this case, I'll go ahead and do 11. It'll delete that one. If I click a delete for the first one, which is a 1, it'll delete that one. Okay. And then I'm going to do has a. So it's going to check to see if this set has an 8. If it does, it's going to return true. I'm going to check a number that's not there, and it should return false. So not a lot on sets here. Obviously, we make things a lot more complicated. You know, there's a lot more functions available and stuff. But sets we're just kind of trying to understand some of the basics here. So that's about all, you know, I think is really important on the sets. Let's go ahead and do a map here. So let's do it like day of the week. So maps are key value pairs, okay? So in this case, we got key equals Monday. I'm going to set the map. So here we go, day equals Monday. Okay, and then get map values, just going to get the value of day is a Monday, right? Delete map value. It's just going to delete the day. So key date, delete it. Let me set that again. Has map key. So it's just asking, does day have Monday? Yes, it does. So it returns true. It's just it's hard coded in here on the code. That's why it's kind of working that way. Let's see. So here we created a new map. And basically all we did was set key and value. And that was for our set map entry. And then our get, it's basically just going to do a get. Does map get the map based on the key, right? Get the value based on the key. And then down here, this is just doing a delete. It's going to delete the key. And then what else did we have? And I guess that's the has. So yeah, that's just map.has. So if it's available. So that's about it there on that. What else I wanted to kind of go over here a little bit. I want to go over when you want to use certain ones here. So let's go through this a little bit. Here's a summary table. So you got an array up here at the top. You got an array, a set, a map. And so for an array, as far as order, array is ordered, right? Ordered basically 0, 1, 2, 3. It's in an ordered list, right? For set is unordered. Set doesn't have an order. You just add. You just basically add a value in it. It's not in any specific order. And a map is ordered based on its insertion order, right? The first one, the second one, the third one, as you add them. Duplicates, array, you can have duplicates as we've seen. And as a set, we've seen that you not allowed duplicates. For a map, you can have a duplicate value, but the key must be unique. You only have one key, like we had day. Day can only there only can be one day key, right? Now you could have a a different key that's called something different than day and have the same value as Monday, but it can't be the same key. Now, as far as accessing for an array, you access arrays by index. Okay, set does not have a direct index access. You access by value. Okay, you access by value. Map is key based. You access by the key. You have to know the key to get the value. And here it just says keys. You know, you have numerical indices, the values themselves, and then keys could be any data type. So in our case, we had day. Day was a string. You could have had a key as a primitive, a number, 1, 2, 3, whatever. A 1 could refer to a value. So data keys can be any type of a data type. So here's some use cases. So an array for ordered list, when you have you have specific order, and you want to be able to access it by index, right? For a set, if you want unique values, there's cases where you only want unique values, and then it's talking about membership testing as well. For map, key value pairs, arbitrary keys. Performance. So this is a very important reason. Obviously the others as well. But don't forget about performance. So if you have a very large array, it's slower. Okay, just how the internal algorithm works to access things. The internal algorithm for arrays to access things, it's going to be slower for large arrays. Smaller arrays is not going to be a big thing. Okay, and for the things that we generally work on, probably not much of a factor there. But when you've got something really complex and that's very large, and maybe you're using multi-dimensional arrays and it's very sophisticated, very huge, you might want to consider a different type of structure for that, right? Sets have very fast lookups. Okay, you're basically looking up by value. It's very much faster. And then the map, relatively fast lookups as well. So for performance, what's more performant? Probably a set's the most performant, then a map, then an array, and obviously it's going to be negligible if it's a small array. It's not really a factor, but anything significant, it could be. So let me see what else I had up here on this arrays. Yeah, pretty much what I said. Examples, we can look at that real quick. Yeah, examples. I kind of already had that a little bit representing. But here's some additional examples for arrays when you would use it. Storing a list of usernames in the order they joined, representing a sequence of events, storing data that will be displayed in the table. And we're all good examples of using arrays. For a set, storing a list of unique user IDs. So say a student ID, right? You don't want duplicate student IDs. You only, needs to be a unique identifier, student ID. Filtering out duplicate entries from a data set. Sometimes there's situations where you sometimes actually have a bunch of data and it may not be in a set, and you want, you only want unique values. You don't want everything, and so you can actually take one kind of a data structure and turn it into another. You can take an array data structure, turn it into a set, and by doing that, you're actually filtering out the duplicate entries, right? Another reason, checking if a user has specific permissions. This is something we haven't really dealt with a lot, but especially when Something like, when you log into sites, when you logged into different things, let's say you log in inside ranking. Well, you log in as a student. I log in as a faculty member, and then also there's administrators. I don't have access to the same functions as administrators do for inside ranking, but I have certain capabilities as a faculty member that the students have, and there's certain things you probably see that I don't even actually see just because it's not relevant to what I need, and things like that. There's permissions, and that's a good one to use too. And sometimes for certain circumstances, there's multiple permissions and not just one. More than just student, there could be other things as well, right? There could be other permissions. It's also a big thing within maybe cloud computing where you can access, certain users can access certain things. You may have a whole list of permissions that you can access, but they're always going to be unique permissions. So that's good use of a set as well. And there you go for key advantage of using a set. Very fast lookups for existence of an item. Maps. Storing user preferences where keys can be any data type. So different user preferences, dark mode, light mode, background color, maybe you're a more sophisticated website where you can configure where you want things to lay out on a screen or so forth, right? Storing user preferences, name value pairs, right? Caching data based on complex keys, and possibly storing metadata associated with objects. Key advantage here, it's basically, the number one key advantage for a map would be that the keys can be any data type. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do a quick run through of the hands-on test. Not the hands-on test, the written test. We're done with hands-on test. Let's see what I got here. Guess I can make this big now. Let's go through. Here, I do want to go through, okay, I did go through the destructuring, and that's fine. That's destructuring. Let's real quick go through this. This is called array reduce. And it basically takes a number, it takes an array, and it reduces it to a single item, okay, to a certain number. And in this case, you take numbers and you do a reduce, and you pass it in a function. In this case, you're taking a total minus the number. And let's go ahead and just try this. So what this is basically doing is taking a total and subtracting. So you're basically subtracting 175, 25 and 50 from 175, so the answer is 100. It's just a different way of doing things. It reduces everything down to basically one item. Okay. Let's see if there's something a little more here. Here it's talking about get sum. So here you're doing a get sum. Here was just you're reducing this down to one number by subtracting it. Here we're doing a total plus a round. Let's go take a look at that. In this case, you're basically taking each number and you're adding them together, but you're rounding them. Okay, and you're reducing is all about getting it down to one specific item. And in this case, you're reducing it down to one item, which is the number 24. And this 0, the second thing in here, is going to basically be the number here. Okay. Well, the number, and in this case, it's the number of digits, right? So it's zero. So you don't want any decimal places. Let's see what else. I would look at W3 schools if you have any questions about arrays. You got the different, all the different kind of things, almost all the ones we went through. Here's the different array methods. Length, toString. We did not go over join, which we can real quick here. So as you can see, join basically takes your array. You know how we used when we did the split, and we did the split based on the comma. So that basically takes in a string that has, a delimiter, and the delimiter was a comma, and we split that. We created an array by splitting based on that comma. In this case, it's kind of like almost the opposite. Is you're using a join. In this case, you're using a join to add something to each one of these in the array. And as you can see, it kind of, I really didn't have to push that, but it's adding the asterisk between each item in the array. Between each item in the array, it's adding a asterisk. So if you want to spend a little time looking through this, it can be helpful as well. Probably the biggest thing is these array methods for pop, push, etc. All right. We looked at multi-dimensional arrays real quick. Let's see. All right. This is the study guide for the test. Arrays are ordered collections of values. Elements are accessed via zero-based indices. The length property indicates the number of elements. So here's all the different ones. Important things. I'm just going to point out a few things. We kind of went through them, but just remember, for a delete for an index, it does not remove the array. It doesn't delete the array, and it also doesn't change the length of the array. It's just going to go ahead and add. Here this says undefined, but I believe it's really going to be null. But I'm just going to leave it like it is, though. Leaving an undefined hole, which I basically, it's saying undefined hole. It's basically puts a null value in there. So it's just a, it is I guess it is true. It's an undefined hole. It just doesn't have a value in there. In our case, we looked at it. It put a null in there, right? We looked at push. So remember, push appends one or more items to the end of an array. And then after you do that, you get the length. Obviously, it'll return the new length. Unshift inserts items at the beginning of an array. Unshift items at the beginning returns the new length as well. Pop removes and returns the last element. It modifies the array. So it's important to know it modifies the array. Shift removes and returns the first element, and it modifies the array. Let's see. So here we did do this. So you've got a splice. You have your start. You have your delete count, and you can add one or more items. Okay. And this is showing an array, I think, of what, I don't know if it's defined up there. But it removes the delete count element starting at the start position. And inserts the items at that position. We didn't look at concatenate, but basically, If you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, and you concatenate a 5, 6, it's just going to add that to the end. We just looked at the join separator. In this case, it's using a dash. We looked at we looked at the asterisk in that last example. Let's see what else here. So we already talked about the structuring. Like it basically extracts values into variables. Okay, extracts the values into variables, and then we looked at sorting. And just remember that sorting is gonna, when you sort something, if you sort numbers, it's gonna sort them based on alphabetically. So it's not going to, if you try to sort the numbers, numerically, it's not going to do that. You have to write a custom function. You have to compare A and B. So basically we took A minus B. And then if you do that, like we looked at that little function that it would take care of that. And then it would go ahead and sort that by, when you do that, it will sort that by numerically. And then once again, as far as JSON's considered, stringify, JSON stringify converts a JavaScript object or array to a JSON string. And the parses the JSON string and creates a JavaScript object or an array. Okay. Sets, always remember sets. Remember collect unique values. Always remember unique values. A delete will remove the value from the set. And that one we didn't go over, but there is a set.clear that'll basically remove all elements from the set. Maps are all about key value pairs. So get key basically returns a value associated with key. When you do has doesn't really, that don't return a value. It just says, does this key exist? If this key exists, return true. Delete key removes the key value pair associated. So, it actually removes the whole key dot value pair, not just the key. It removes the key value pair. And it will return true if this is successful. And then the clear removes all key value pairs from the map. So, all right. Let's take a short little break here and we'll go over the lab assignment for this week. All right, as far as the Chapter 15 lab assignment, so this is going to be an interactive HTML interview question assignment, and the big thing with this is, we want to make sure that we're going to use GitHub Pages for this. So you need to make sure that you create a new repository. We do the same thing that we did for the RSS, the midterm, the RSS feeds one, and the our web portfolio. We want to do the same thing for that. You can read through this. I'm not going to sit there and read all of this. I know it's. I will let you know. So it says see Chapter 15 lab video. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this with the video right now that we're doing for this. So you're tasked with building a robust web page for HTML interview preparation. The web page should display a list of HTML interview questions. You hide the answers until it's clicked. You display a visual indicator, example, a check mark next to question whose answers have been viewed. We're going to be using local storage like we've done already. Using browser local storage, persistent the viewed question status. Utilize Bootstrap for clean and responsive styling. Ensure only one answer is displayed at a time. Collapsing the other answers when a new question is selected. Include a reset progress button to clear viewed questions and indicators, and add a progress bar above the questions. Let's see here. What else do I want to point out? So I do have some interview questions here at the end. If you wanted to come up with some interview questions to add, you could use that, or come up with your own. And as far as the things on here, if I'm fine with using your own creativity on building this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. The important thing is, just make sure that you follow as far as, making sure that you got your local storage. So you're saving it to local storage, that you're collapsing, and the questions when they need to be collapsed and so forth. Obviously using the arrays and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Let's just go ahead and look at my version here. So let me bring it up, I guess. Show you how it works, how it looks. So this is my version. You can do something like this. You can do something a little different. Just here's the basic one I created. So here's the different questions, and we'll look at the code here in a minute. But I'll just show you the basic functionality of how this works. You click on this. When you click on this, it shows that it's been clicked on. And here's the answer. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Then when I click on this one, it's going to go ahead and collapse this one and show the next one. All right, all the way through. And let me show you what's going on behind the scenes on this. So let me click F12 here. And we're going to go to Application. We're going to go to Local Storage. And as you notice, I've got this viewed questions. So it's 0 and 1. If I go down here, I did the very first one and the second one. So I'm just going to do the last one for the heck of it, just to show you how this changed. And it doesn't matter really, because it doesn't really matter the order or anything. It's just showing you how it's actually just putting it into local storage. So what is the purpose of semantic HTML? Click on that. And so semantic HTML uses HTML elements to reinforce the meaning of the content. It also improves accessibility and SEO. And as you can see here, it went ahead and just put a 9 in there, right? So that was the last one. 0 through 9, got 10 different questions. And then if you just kind of do them all, and as you can see, the progress bar is increasing. You can use any kind of progress bar. Actually, you can put percentages of maybe progress as well, whatever you feel like doing. Did I do them all? I think so. So basically it's 100% progress right now. And then, so if I go ahead, I can go ahead and click Reset Progress. It's going to go ahead and delete this from there. And you're back to 0 again. Okay. And then obviously if you can, since it's going into local storage here. So I'm going to do the first 2. And then I'm just going to close this. I'm going to close this as well. So we've closed our window. And if I open it up again, it's still going to hold on to it. It's still going to be in local storage, right? It's going to stay in local storage until you reset it here, or, you reset if you go ahead and reset based on deleting your browser data. All right, you delete your browser data, it'll delete it all, but either that or you can go ahead and reset your progress. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the code a little bit. Guess we might as well put that next to each other in case we want to look at that a little more. So as far as the HTML, so if you want to use this as your follow along here on this for your own, or you want to create your own from scratch, it's fine. Obviously, I'm importing the Bootstrap. Make sure that for your JavaScript, because this is, as you notice down here, we're doing we're adding a lot of we're adding all these questions dynamically using the DOM, right? The DOM, document object model. So if you go ahead and come in here on your defer and we get rid of that, you're not going to see anything, right? You have to use defer. You have to do this at the end after everything's loaded, right? After everything's loaded, or it's not going to work. And in my case, I just have a few different, a little bit of styles here, additional styles. I'm doing a cursor pointer, so I don't know if you've seen that before. So instead of instead of the little arrow, as you can see when I'm hovering over this, it's the little pointer, the little hand pointer, right? You don't have to do that. I just added that. Okay. Let's see, centered. I'm just centering it, display in the middle. I'm using the display flex and justify content for the center. Also on this, another thing I am doing, I'll show you real quick. Not that you have to do this either, but if you're going through this, it's going to scroll and keep this top portion up there so you can see your progress. Okay, I didn't make that part of my part of the requirements for this, but so you don't have to do it. It's optional, but that's what I did for mine here. All right. Let's see here. And so to do that, basically all you need to do, if you want to go ahead, is, well, I wrapped. This isn't very formatted. Not great. Let's see. All right. So I wrapped this here in basically a div, and I use sticky top. Sticky top will keep that at the top there. Okay. It does, I know that you can do some things to make it a little better. See, it kind of moves around a little bit, being picky here. Not a big deal. I don't care, so that's fine. But sticky top will keep that so you can go ahead and scroll. So that's about it. Then obviously put my Bootstrap JavaScript at the end, right by the end, before the end body tag. And the biggest thing is questions. This is basically the thing using the DOM var to dynamically create the questions. Okay, so let's look at the JavaScript here. So this is what you'll have to do. Is come in, you'll create and this is how I did it. I did a question and answer. So basically, this is basically JSON data. This is what I'm doing. I'm basically creating an object here of question and answer. So here's the question, and there's the answer. So what you'll need to do is come up with 10 on your own. Don't just copy mine. This is kind of hopefully do a little bit of a review for you, so you can kind of go over some of the concepts. Maybe pick some questions that that you don't know very well, to kind of help you, to help you kind of review some things or learn some things you didn't know. So like I said, you can use those links that I had that I put on the document, or you can just search for your own interview questions as well. But this is basically how I did mine. I got basically a list of questions here using a question and answer, And you need to make sure that you're putting it into curly braces and putting a comma after each one. Okay. And then here I'm doing a, let's see. So yeah, this is getting it out of local storage. So it's getting the item. Okay. So first time in, let's just go ahead and let's clear this. Let me put this back here. Let me clear that, which was already cleared. And then let me go ahead and put a breakpoint in here. So actually, I'm just going to delete this one. And I'm going to start the debugger. I wonder why. Oh, I guess because I didn't do it here before. Okay. What is mine? 5,500, I think. Save. And if we need to go through this again, let me know. If you have a problem. I just kind of try to get you used to use the debugger so you can kind of work through your own things. It makes things a lot nicer. Best way to locate problems. So let's see if that's working now. Nope. Why is that bringing up that one? That's a little bizarre. That's not even the correct one. It's probably because I started it there. I don't know. So sometimes what you do, like for me, I have different folders of stuff going on here. So I try to launch this debug and it's causing an issue. It's probably the easiest thing for me to do is opening up the lab by itself instead of a higher root directory because I have multiple things in here. And it's kind of getting confused because it's going to put, when you open up a directory, it's going to put your VS Code stuff and your launch stuff here at the very root. And so it can kind of get confused with other things. So I'm going to go ahead and just reopen this up. Okay, so now I just have this lab assignment. So now let me go ahead and do our F5 here. Put a breakpoint in there. Let's see. We'll do F5 up here. Do web Chrome. I really don't want to do it that way. What I really want to do so I know this you can see that I'm having a little struggles with it as well. But so, it takes some time to get used to using the debugger and stuff. So what I really want to do here is I need to add a configuration is what I really need to do. And let's see what happens if I do it this way. So this is what I want to do. Let me save that. Let me go here, hit F5 here. Okay, now this will happen, and I might have mentioned this last week. This will happen if you don't have live. It's kind of a thing where live server, you have to have like an instance of live server running first. So what you really need to do here is you need to right click on your thing, open with live server. And then even though once you got that open, just leave that open and forget about it. It's just because how live server works. So now it's kind of got an instance of live server running. Now if you come in here and go ahead and do your F5 key, it's going to open that up. It's still doing some strange things there, but that's okay. It's working. I apologize. I probably should look at that a little more. But so I just wanted to come in here. So since we know we don't have any values, if I go ahead and walk through this. You can see it's got an empty array here. It's got an empty array here. All right. So that's the first thing it does. Sorry, it took a long time just to get to this point. But important thing here is for your questions, make sure you use your like JSON.parse, and then you want to parse what you have in local storage. Okay. That stuff that's saved in local storage is going to be saved as a string. So you're going to need to parse that, okay? So do JSON.parse on your local storage, okay? And we'll look how you actually created, you know, how we do that in the first place. Basically here, saved view storage question, and you have a question index. And we just go ahead and push this to this array, right? This is creating an array. And so we're going to just push our question index to our array, and we're going to set that in local storage, whatever name you want to give that. But then you want to go ahead, when you do that, you need to save it as a string again. Okay, you need to save it as a string. So you wouldn't need to do this JSON stringify to take your array and go ahead and save that, okay? And after each one, you want to update your progress bar, okay? So let's just go ahead and put a breakpoint on that one. And let me click on this. And so once I clicked on this, it's calling save viewed question, and question index is 0, right? And then let's go ahead and walk through that. And then this is taking viewed question dot push. It's pushing a 0, okay? And then it's taking local storage. So viewed question now is going to have a 0 in there because that's the first one. And then it's doing a local storage set item. It's setting this to doing the JSON stringify for the viewed question. Okay. And update progress bar. Let's just go to update progress bar. So this is how you update this progress bar. And we'll take a look at that in the HTML. I guess I didn't look at that originally. So progress bar equals, you get element by ID, your progress bar. Okay. And so you need to be able to calculate your progress. So you basically use your viewed question.length, right? That's basically your array. And you take that dot length and divide it by the questions.length, right? So the questions that you viewed, and you divide that by the questions, all of the questions there are, which is that basically that array at the beginning, at the top. And you have to multiply that by 100, okay? And so then that will give you your percentage, okay? And by setting this attribute, this aerial value now on your progress, this will go ahead and update that progress bar, okay? It'll update that progress bar. let's put a breakpoint right here. Let's continue to that. Now we're at there. So here you can see progress is 10%, right? We did the first one. We have 10 questions, so we have 10%. So we pass in this, we do this progress bar dot set attribute, okay, the area value now, and we put a 10, and it will show 10%, okay? Let me click that to continue on. Let me go back real quick and look at the HTML. So this is, you know, this is just a bootstrap progress bar. Okay, this is a bootstrap progress bar. This isn't something I created on my own. So you can go ahead and go take a look at there's different progress bars that are available in Bootstrap, and then this is the one I'm using here. Okay, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. You got a value max, okay, of 100. All right, so that's updating the progress bar. And basically we want to update the progress bar every time we answer a question. So here, let's look at where we're at. Let's get back to where we were. So we have our list of questions. Using question and answer. Make sure you use your curly braces, separate them with commas. And we always, at the beginning, you want to go ahead and check right away. The first thing you want to do when you come in here, because you may save, you know, you may answer some questions and close your screen. You come back in. First thing you want to do is you want to go see if there's something already in local storage on this, right? So that's the first thing you're going to do is you want to try to get the item out of local storage. If it's there, it's going to return a value, right? If not, it's going to be null, right? And then every time you answer a question, you're going to save the viewed question. And here's a function for resetting the progress. So basically you're just doing a going local storage and you're removing the item. Setting the viewed questions array back to empty string, or empty array, not string. And looping through to set the display. You know, we have the check marks and stuff like that, right? So we're kind of resetting the check marks and everything. And then, so after you do all of that, you want to go ahead and update your progress bar. You want to call that after, when you click reset progress. The first thing you're doing is removing your local storage. And then after that, you know, you're getting rid of your check marks and everything. And then after that, you want to go ahead and update your progress bar. Okay, and we already looked at update progress bar. All right, so here's a map. We're using a map here, question.map, item and index. Okay. And so this is dynamically creating, you know, the entry for each one of these, right? So we can go ahead and take a look at that. Let's go ahead and let me reset progress here. And let me refresh my screen. So this is creating a new div tag. Creating a class name for that. And it's basically, you're a bootstrap row. We're centering the row, right? Giving it some margin, a little bit of margin. Then we're creating a card. Create another div. Our class name, adding a class name for our column. And then we've got our inner HTML here. Class of card, and then we're using our index, data index, using our question here. And then we're setting this part, which is basically our answer. We're setting display to none, so this is hidden. It'll be hidden. Let me just by setting this display to none. And then we're doing a append child where we're just adding these cards. So basically we're adding all the questions. We're adding the questions and answers, but we're hiding the answers, right? Because we have display none to hide the answers. So by me continuing here, we're just basically going through this for each question and answer section. Okay. And that's why I'm just trying to show you a little bit on this debugger stuff, just so if you guys have some problems, you can use this debugger. And yeah, sometimes, it takes a while. You got to learn how to work through that too. Even, myself, I was having some challenges with that. And if you do, I'll help you with it. It might take a little bit to get through it, but we can get through it. Just got something. There's just these little quirks, especially we're using live server and stuff like that. So the debugging stuff can be kind of a little bit more complicated. But, once you get it working and you learn when it doesn't work, you figure out how to get it working, you'll get there. I got it working rather quickly there, just a couple hiccups along the way. So, let's see. So we went through that. So we'll just go ahead and get rid of our breakpoint and continue on here. So that's going to create all our, using the question.map, basically creating all of our questions and answers. And then we got append child. We're appending the cards to the rows, and we're appending the row to the questions div tag, right? So let's make sure we find that one in there. So the questions div tag is basically the questions element that's defined in here, which is right here. Right? So this is what we're dynamically creating all the questions and answers right here. Okay. Now here we're adding our event listeners and everything. Let's see here. I just want to make sure you guys can see all of this. Okay. So you want to probably really look at that query selector. You're going to need to do this data index equals index like that. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the created DOM here in a little bit. But you got a header, you got your header, you got your answer, and complete it. So if the viewed question includes, remember we looked at that here earlier as far as the using the includes, and if it includes that index, you make that inline display, inline, right? Add event listener. So you want to collapse all the other answers. And you want to toggle the current answer. So you collapse, pretty much you're collapsing everything, and then you just toggle the current one. And then at the bottom here, we're doing here's our reset button, adding an event listener to that to reset the progress. And then you want to make sure after you reset your progress, you want to make sure that you update your progress bar. All right. Trying to see if there's anything else that... There's not a lot of code here. You know, there's some things that you probably just haven't done before. But just quick review, you know, you're going to make sure you put all your questions in here. Like this, with the curly braces, make sure you got a comment after each one, or you'll have a problem with that. First thing you want to do is go ahead and view your local storage to see if that's already exists. Okay. If not, you're going to return. So if it's here, then you're going to return that if there's a value. Otherwise, you return an empty array. And this would be an empty array. Okay, let's make sure that we see where everything's being called here. So we got save view questions. Where's that being called? That's being called when we're looping through each one. When we're looping through each one, we toggle the current answer, save the viewed questions. Okay. So it's based on that index, and that index is decided right here, right? All right. Reset progress. Let's see where we're resetting the progress at. Only place we reset the progress is at pretty much basically on resetting the button, right? Click the reset button. We call the reset progress method. And make sure in your reset progress, you want to update your progress bar. And when you update your progress bar, you're taking your viewed questions.length divided by the total amount of questions and multiplying that by 100. And you can set your progress bar.style.width to your progress. And then you need to make sure you set this attribute like this. It should be, I'm not sure if it's same for all the Bootstrap progress bars, you know, but you might have to look into that if you decide to use a different progress bar. And you can also, like I said, on that progress bar, maybe you can add a, you know, the percentage number that's, you know, you can add that to that as well. I didn't. So And then here we're just getting the question div, which is basically the div that's in your HTML. That's right there. Okay. And then here's our basic, our map, right? Which we kind of, we looked at all this and just kind of letting you guys see this a little more. For video's sake, if you guys need to walk through this. So you make sure that you append the card to the row, and then you need to append the row to the question div. And then here's the for each. And this to collapse all the other answers, to toggle, to set things to be either inline or display none or display block. So that's what's all happening here. And that's about it. So you guys that are online with me right now, you guys have any questions about anything? So that's all I have. Please let me know if you have any questions and need any help with anything, especially the debugging stuff. Or any other questions about the lab in general. I kind of went through it slowly so you could see, kind of went through it more than once, just so you guys could see it. If you want to follow along to do your labs, that's fine. Or if you want to do your own thing, that's all right as well. So please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.